Hello and welcome to your weekly tarot forecast for the last week of July, first week of August 2025. I'm Michelle Shea Walker, and this is your glass half full perspective on the week ahead. If you're a paid subscriber, or if you tipped your reader this week, be sure to stick around until the end when I do a drawing for a personalized reading. So you'll want to see if you won that. And if you aren't a subscriber and you didn't tip your reader, you have an opportunity below to do either one of those things and enter into next week's reading. So this is the last week of July, which kind of caught me off guard. I had to go and do my organization for looking up what August astrology was going to look like because we're moving into August this week. So if you feel like time is going really quickly, you're not alone. And I really want to give us a bit of a heads up on August before we go into this last week of July, because it's fresh in my mind and we are diving into that month this month. So, little overview of August energy. If you're new here, I do study astrology and tarot, but I'm also a very energy based reader. So I will write down my notes for what the actual astrology of the event is, and then I'll kind of get an overall feel of the energy in that process as well. And so the energy of August feels like a bit of a pause. We do have a lot of planets that are still retrograde from going retrograde during the month of July. And while looking at my calendar, it does look like there's a lot of notes that I've taken down. It felt when I initially saw the astrology for August like there was less going on than there has been in the past few months. That doesn't mean that there's not really important energies slipping into place, but it feels like it's an opportunity to catch our breath and to catch up on some things that we might have had put to the wayside during this sort of upheaval of all of these planets going retrograde during July. The energy of summer, if you're in the northern hemisphere, tends to kind of pick up, and there's a lot of things to do. And there's a feeling that August is going to give us an opportunity to kind of regroup, especially as we are starting to move towards the sun in Virgo in August. It feels like that sort of like preamble of like getting your stuff organized and together before back to school time, which is what Virgo season always feels like because it is August when most schools are going back. So it feels like for those of us that aren't in school, it's still back to school time when Virgo season comes around. So that doesn't mean that you can't still have your summer fun in August, but it does feel like that if there's something this summer that you've had on your agenda that just hasn't seemed to get done, August is your opportunity to do that. And preferably towards the start of Virgo season or by the start of Virgo season. So you feel like you've got everything kind of organized for that energy. So that's what I have to say about the month coming up. But we're still closing out July. So let's focus on that energy first. If you remember, we've had plenty of retrogrades throughout July. This week contains one of those last retrogrades. So there's been a lot of energy of sort of slowing down and reviewing and reevaluating and making sure that we're on the right path, going in the right direction. And that's an important thing to be doing. And honestly, I feel like that's really an appropriate thing to be doing before we get organized next month. So I feel like the energy of July has been a little bit dreamy in good and bad ways. It's been very much about reevaluating things and taking stock of things. And in some cases, it's gotten really sort of like daydreamy in a beautiful, wonderful way of like, what do we want life to look like? What do we want a space to look like? What do we want the world to look like? And then in other times, it's gotten kind of the other side of that coin where it's gotten a little hazy and we don't feel like we have a clear path forward. And both of these things are part of that Wheel of Fortune cycle. Like we're going to have upswings and we're going to have downswings. So I want to honor that and just send you some love and some good vibes if it's been a bit of a roller coaster this summer. And I think that that's definitely part of the plan. And we're going to find out more from the cards, but you've done a really good job. and I'm right there with you. And we're going to make it through the end of this month and into August, and we're going to get all of that energy organized. And as these planets start to go direct slowly over the course of the next several months, I think we're really going to see the fruits of our labor and results from all of that sort of like back and forth with our evaluation of things. So, starting with Monday, July 28th, we have Venus sextile Chiron. So, Venus is the planet of love, beauty, creativity. Chiron is our wounded healer. It's the parts of ourselves that might need a little more love, a little more tender care. And these two planets are coming together and creating very supportive energy. So, it's a really good day to allow for like art therapy, because Venus is a very creative, artistic planet and energy. And if we're coming together with those wounds from Chiron, you might be finding that you can kind of make something beautiful from something painful on Monday. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. You don't necessarily have to transmute your pain in some way. You just have to kind of be able to process that on your own. But if you are someone that leans more towards the artistic side of things, I do find in my own personal practice that that is a good way to kind of like have a catharsis and move the energy out of you by creating something in the world. So if that calls to you, it's a supportive energy for that. We also have a card of the Page of Pentacles. So this could be a really inviting opportunity for getting secure and grounded in some way. So the page is just starting out in the energy of the pentacles and kind of becoming apprentice in that energy. And the pentacles are about money, they're about security, they're about our home. They're sometimes about family, because that revolves around like home and security as well. So there's this very sort of earthy evaluation of things and kind of getting your footing in some aspect. So it could be that you're embarking upon a new career or job opportunity and you're getting your footing there. You're learning the ropes, you're going through training, you're doing whatever lessons that you need to learn in order to be able to feel like you understand the process that you're about to go through. It could be that you're getting your footing in just organizing your finances and making sure that you have sort of a clear budget. Like maybe you've gotten a little out of hand with the spending over the summer and you need to kind of rein things in and get things organized as we move towards that Virgo season next month. Or it could be that you are just getting your footing in regards to your home and family life. Like maybe you've recently moved, maybe you're doing a renovation, but the lesson is that it's okay to not know everything whenever you're making this transition and you're making this bid for more security and stability in your life. So there's definitely this feeling of being able to make mistakes if you need to have a bit of a beginner's mindset, and to give yourself a bit of a learning curve of letting yourself really be a beginner and have to I've got text messages going off that are distracting me, which feels like part of the lesson. Getting grounded, getting focused, getting really centered in what you're doing and being really present. So that's what Monday's about. And again, if you also want to do a little bit of that Venus and Chiron energy of being able to just go ahead and make some art, create something out of your pain or your healing, that's going to be part of the process as well. I am trying to silence my online text messages because my phone is silenced, but this one is not. And I don't know how to do that. So we're just going to deal with that and have some dings. And maybe the dings mean something to someone. Maybe there's a certain word that I'm saying at the time that the text alert goes off. So we're just going to trust that process. Yeah, it's unfortunate that my phone being silenced is not silencing my computer, which it normally does. Let's try this. There we go. That should fix the problem. There's an energy moving into Tuesday of creating some boundaries. We have the moon moving into Libra, which again, I kind of gloss over the moon moving signs because it does happen so often. We go through all the signs each and every month. But know that your innermost emotions might be leaning more towards people pleasing. And the card is going to help us with that as the moon is in Libra for the next couple days, because the Queen of Swords is all about boundaries and making sure that you are not letting the outside world taking advantage of your people-pleasing tendencies. This is definitely a feeling of being able to pull up the drawbridge and give yourself the space to be away from any energies that aren't supporting you at this time. And there's a big message that's coming through in a lot of the readings that I'm doing one-on-one with individuals, which it also is reflected in the collective, where we're being challenged to create boundaries without villainizing people. Because there is a very common tendency in today's society to want to go into that cancel culture mindset of, oh, someone's not good for me right now in this moment, so they're evil. I'm going to label them as the devil in my phone, and I'm going to cut them out of my life entirely. And in some cases, there are toxic situations where you do want to do that secure cutting of the cord. But most of the time, we're creating boundaries that are fluid. That's the point of learning how to ebb and flow with the outside world. So sometimes you have to create boundaries with the people that are really dear to you and aren't being toxic, but you just need a break and you need to focus on something else for a while. And the people in your life that are really supportive of you are going to be supportive of your boundaries and your limitations. So this could be sort of an end of July social burnout that we're dealing with, that we need to kind of calibrate to be able to sustain ourselves in the life and in the world. I know that I have had a very social week this last week. And today, Sunday, at the time of recording this, was my first day to kind of really be by myself. And I just kind of took this breath of relief, and I didn't realize how much I needed that. So the Queen of Swords is telling us to not get to that point that you feel like you're being burnt out, and to create those boundaries early and often. And this could be something as simple as knowing that you need at least a certain amount of time each day to spend time by yourself. Maybe it's a meditation practice, maybe it's just sitting and reading a book for a while, but like know how you recalibrate to your own energy and know the minimum amount that you need to allocate to that. And it's probably going to be on a daily basis. It's probably not going to be a weekly thing. You need to mark it off daily. And don't be Libra about it. Don't people please and break down those boundaries. Let yourself be non-negotiable. And maybe it's negotiable what time of day you do these things, but you have to carve out the time for yourself to regroup, to recenter, to recalibrate to your own energy. And then that's when you can gauge how much more social time you can engage in that day, that week, that month. But you have to be able to check in order to do that evaluation. So that's what I'm getting from this card. Moving into Wednesday, we have our first big astrology and our final retrograde of the month of July, which is Chiron going retrograde. So as I mentioned, whenever they showed up on Monday, Chiron is our wounded healer planet. It is the planet that we are allowing our past pain to be supportive of our mission. But there is sort of a pain point to the energy around Chiron. So, I mean, think of any valuable spiritual teacher in the world. They usually have encountered some sort of pain that's focused around the lesson that they're sharing with the world. And without that pain, they wouldn't be as good of a teacher. But that doesn't mean that the pain is dulled. I'm actually getting a lot from the beginning of this reading on of Alanis Morissette energy coming forward. A lot of her early Jagged Little Pill songs are coming into my head as I'm doing this reading. And I think that's because she kind of embodies that Chiron wounded healer aspect of things, and that she's taken sort of this pain from, especially in Jagged Little Pill, a breakup, and she's transmuted it into something not only creative that she wanted. She even says in interviews that she thought it would create a catharsis, and it actually didn't as much as she wanted it to, because she still had to do other work outside of creating things to kind of move that energy. But it does help to move that energy. And so she's not only moving that energy for herself, but then in sharing that with the outside world, she created this whole genre of angry girl rock, and all of the world realized that they needed to be able to vent in song and belt out something like You Ought to Know, because we all have those points of pain within our lives. So that's kind of what I want to think of with Chiron. It's not something that makes us weaker. It's something that makes us stronger in our mission and in this life. And in sharing and transmuting that pain, we're also helping the outside world. So I do not believe in a victim mentality. Whatever it is that has happened to you, that's painful, that's hard, you honor it and you recognize that it creates a deeper amount of strength and a more authentic presentation of whatever it is that you're bringing to the world, because only you have your specific experiences, your specific wounds, and that is going to color the way that you show up in the world and the service that you can be to the world around you by utilizing those lessons that you've learned. So when Chiron goes retrograde, we're reevaluating those pain points, those wounds, those life lessons, and maybe finding ways to transmute them into art, into writing, into teaching lessons, into meditations, whatever resonates for you. And it doesn't have to be like on the global stage. It can be within your own little intimate circles. Or if you're a parent, it could be for your children. There's definitely an element of not necessarily needing to expose yourself to everyone in the world and tell everyone your story. So for some people, that is their calling, and that's okay. But if you're not feeling that call, know that your wounds and the way that you're healing them are still of service to the world around you, sometimes just by being an example to those that are seeing you pick yourself back up and exist in the world. So just know that this could bring up some evaluation of past pain while Chiron is retrograde. So be gentle with yourselves. I'm getting big, the energetic equivalent of chicken soup is going to be kind of poured over the next several months as Chiron is retrograde. It's retrograde in the sign of, I don't have that in my notes, but it's back here. Chiron is currently in Aries. I should have known that. So whatever house Aries is in your chart, if you do know your rising sign, and you can count from there around the calendar to find out from 1 to Aries, then you'll know what area of your life these wounds and these healings and these lessons are going to be coming up most. And then you have time, because Chiron's retrograde for a while. So you have some time to work with this energy and to get yourself out of any sticky circumstances, which is what our card is telling us for Wednesday, because we have this Eight of Swords reversed. So the Eight of Swords is always a message that you control your freedom and your feeling of freedom. And especially when it's reversed, you're very much in control, because it's usually going on within you. The prison that you've put yourself in is a mental prison, and you can walk out of it whenever you wish. So the image on this card, she can wiggle out of these ropes. They're not very tight. She can take the blindfold off her eyes and she can walk through that because there's a path. So even though it feels like she's trapped because there's ropes around her, there's a blindfold on her, and she knows there's swords around her, by shifting the perspective slightly, by recognizing that shifting the weight one way and another way wiggles the ropes off, and taking the blindfold off and seeing things from a clear perspective, you then realize that there's a way out. And when it's within your mind that you've created the prison, it's harder to see that there's a way out, because you've created this vision for yourself. But it's easier to get to that way out once you realize that you're in control. So know that your mind is your domain. And if you have told yourself a story that you're trapped in a certain lifestyle, a certain habit, a certain addictive pattern, you can change that story. And especially with Chiron retrograde, we're rewriting stories. We're reevaluating the things that we've told ourselves. And it's a really good time to tell yourself a different story. There's a beautiful interview that I watched recently, or a clip from an interview with Kristen Bell, who I do relate to very much. Her birthday is a day after mine, and I've been told that we look similar in some cases. But I do enjoy hearing her thoughts on parenting. And I'm not a parent, and I have no desire to be a parent, but she has some really good sort of ways of teaching her children. And she mentioned that they have a saying in their house whenever someone doesn't get their way, and it's, do you want to be the victim or do you want to be the hero? Because you can complain about your circumstance and be the victim, or you can choose to make things different, to see things from a different perspective, to change the circumstance you find yourself in and be the hero. And that's the big energy of this card. It's the big energy of Chiron retrograde. And it's honestly kind of one of my internal life mottos. It's just that the lovely Kristen Bell put it into words that I could now regurgitate to you. So do you want to be the victim or do you want to be the hero? Because you are in charge of that story, and how you tell it is really, really important. So if you need to rewrite the story that you're telling yourself, Chiron retrograde is giving you that opportunity. We also have Venus moving into Cancer on Wednesday. So that is a really beautiful energy for bringing up emotions. Also a really beautiful energy to doing a continuation of what we talked about on Monday, which is taking those wounds and making them something creative and beautiful, transmuting them into something that is going to be shared with the world. Because Cancer is very intuitive, but also with Venus in Cancer, it's that energy of like taking the emotions and making something beautiful, because Cancer is a very emotional water sign. I know I'm a Cancer sun, but Venus is about making beauty out of that energy. So yeah, if you are an artist inclined to share your pain through art, through music, through poetry, through writing, it's good energy for that as we move into this week. So you got to face those wounds in order to know how to create something beautiful from them. I hope that helps. Moving into Thursday, the 31st of July, our last day of the month, we have a Mercury Cazimi. So especially if the things you're creating have to do with communication, writing, talking, filming videos, broadcasting things over technology, Mercury Cazimi is going to be really supportive energy for sharing something with the world. Now, we do still have Mercury retrograde, so it gets a little tricky, but I still like a good Mercury Cazimi. I feel like even if you share something during a Mercury Cazimi while Mercury is retrograde that doesn't get received the way that you hoped it would, because that's sometimes the risk when Mercury is retrograde, we misunderstand one another. I think it'll still sink in later. So I would say if you feel called to share something, especially on the 31st, share it, but share it knowing that it may not get the reaction that you hoped right away. It might be sort of a delayed ideal reaction down the line when Mercury goes direct. Like you'll plant the seed in someone's brain and it'll take some time to blossom, and it'll take some time for them to come to that realization that something that you said or shared was valuable to them. Okay. The card for Thursday, I think, is a really beautiful energy for this because it's the Temperance card reversed. So the Temperance card, I have my squirrel friend visiting on the tree outside, is about creating balance in your life that feels almost impossible to the outside viewer. It's about being able to have one foot on land, one foot in water. So one foot in sort of the material world, one foot in the sort of spiritual creative world, and sort of like mixing all of these like alchemist type liquids together. Like this liquid's kind of going like defying gravity and going between the cups. Again, it's like magic is happening here. Alchemy is happening here. And it feels to the outside world, especially to those that aren't doing the work on themselves, that you're doing something that's not possible. Like, this is such a weird metaphor that's wanting to come through with this, but it's going to resonate for someone. This feels like someone accusing a person that's living a really healthy life and really taking good care of themselves in their older age of having to have had work done, even when they haven't. I know a lot of times when we talk about these storylines, we're talking about celebrities that say they haven't had work done, they have. We're not talking about that in this situation. We're talking about someone living a really healthy life and people assuming that they had to have taken some sort of shortcut or cheat code, or that it's not authentic, that it's not real. So if you saw like a really well-preserved older person being very happy, being very like at one with their body and just living their best life, people assume that there's something, there has to be something that they're not telling, because it can't be that simple. Because it's not simple. Because dedicating yourself to living a healthy life and really doing the work on yourself, whether it be externally or internally, is never simple. It's a day-to-day commitment, and you have to give up certain things that aren't good for you. And there's this feeling of people assuming that it's not possible, that this person has done something to create this illusion of perfection, of health, of being mentally stable, because we are talking so much about that Chiron energy of taking our wounds and making something beautiful out of it. And this is kind of this energy of like the outside world can't quite believe it. Because it's turned inward with a reverse card, I feel like we're more aware of the magic that we're creating than the outside world might be. And maybe that is because the outside world kind of doubts the authenticity or the legitimacy of something. And honestly, you have to be okay with that. In this Chiron retrograde, transmuting your pain into something beautiful, sharing it with the world in whatever way it's supposed to be shared with the world, you have to be okay with some people just not feeling it, not believing you, assuming that you're doing something that is a cheat code. Like the cheat code is what keeps coming forward. Like assuming that you cheated in some way, not cheat code, assuming that you cheated in some way at whatever it is that you're saying that you did. And you have to be okay with knowing that you didn't and just letting them believe whatever they want to believe, because that's not your business. So you will resonate with the people that are meant to resonate with you. The people that really need to learn from your experience will find you. And the people that are claiming that you don't know what you're talking about, or claiming that you didn't do it the right way, or you didn't do it the honest way. If you know that you did it the honest way, you just got to let them believe whatever they want to believe. Yeah, just let it go. Let it roll off your back is what I'm getting from this. Because you know that you're this like angelic figure balancing it all, doing the hard work, and making it seem effortless. Moving into Friday, so when we change into the month of August, we have a couple squares with Venus. And squares are a little uncomfortable. The planets are not working well together when they come into a square. So it's interesting that the 2 points of astrology for this day are both squares, and they're both involving Venus. So there is this energy of like the beginning of the week is good for creativity and Venetian things. And then Friday might not be as supportive of that energy, because Venus squares Saturn, the planet of life lessons, sort of our school marm, kind of with the ruler slapping our wrist, letting us know that we need to get to work. And then we have Venus square Neptune, which is like our daydreamy energy. So Friday just feels a little funky for creativity and beauty and love as well. So if you're doing some stuff with love this week, Friday might not be the best day for moving forward with those energies. But it is a good day to evaluate that Chiron aspect of things. Because if Venus is butting up against Saturn, our lesson planet, and it's also butting up against Neptune, our daydreams, those things could be involved in those wounds. You might have some history with your love or creative practices conflicting with the lessons that life is trying to teach you, or conflicting with the daydreams that you have for those things. This could be kind of a reality check on Friday of like, do your dreams for love, creativity, and beauty, for love, creativity, and beauty, do they line up with what's actually possible? And I don't mean that in like a wet blanket, I'm going to rain on your parade, like tell you your dreams aren't possible sort of way. But are you taking the action to make the dreams legitimate in the real world? Or are you keeping them in that fantasy realm? Because Neptune is kind of like fantasy realm territory. And there's this feeling of like Venus coming square with Neptune right after being square with our life lessons in Saturn, saying, hey, if you were really doing the work, would these things still be living in just a fantasy world? Do you need to take action in your life to make those dreams a reality? So you might get a little bit of a reality check on Friday. We do have a card coming on Friday that also supports a little bit of a pause in action or a reshuffling of your commitments, because it is the Ten of Wands. And the Ten of Wands is usually a card of exhaustion, of overburden, of trying to carry more than your own share. So I do think Friday is a good day, if you can, to kind of pause, turn within, reevaluate, and let go of the things that you don't need to carry so that you can really focus on the things that you want to accomplish, the dreams that you want to make a reality. So this really feels like a checkpoint of like, hey, what do you value? What do you want to create in the world? What are your dreams around love and beauty and creativity and everything Venus? And as you're going through all this other stuff we talked about at the beginning of the week with healing wounds and integrating them and kind of learning life's lessons, what are you focusing on that isn't as valuable to you anymore? Maybe it once was, but it's not anymore, because you can't do everything at once. For some people, I'm feeling like this is maybe calling for sort of a pivot in the career. And there's a job that you've been doing for quite some time that you've been taking on more and more responsibility for, and it's not giving you enough energy to pursue the thing that you really desire. And you're going to have to make some cuts. You're going to have to delegate. You're going to have to put up some boundaries and really let go of some obligations on the things that aren't your future. So what do you want your future to look like? What is currently on your plate? And what on your plate is more past focused than future focused? And can you put it off your plate and on someone else's? Or at the very least, just put it off your plate and worry about who picks it up later, because you need to focus on what's creating your future that you desire. Told you, August is about getting our shit together. So that's just the first day. Moving into Saturday, August 2nd, quieter astrology. Our card is the Five of Pentacles reversed. So again, when we reverse it, usually it's an inward struggle, more in our minds than anything. Five of Pentacles is a fear of not having enough, of not being supported, of not being financially stable. So especially for those of you that resonated with the day before card, when I said maybe you're doing a pivot in your career and you're worried about leaving something behind and giving up some obligations, that could be because you're afraid that you're going to lose some sort of financial stability. The thing that I'm energetically picking up on just now as I'm reading through this card is that this could be a gradual process that moves quickly. So this is really especially for those of you that resonated with the career thing, because that's the biggest thing that's coming forward. But if that's not what resonates for you, reappropriate this to your story. This feels like not quitting the job tomorrow. Like that would be not gradual. Doing a gradual moving away, but expecting for quicker results, and maybe even giving yourself a tighter deadline. So this is like give a couple obligations away tomorrow, but like give yourself a tight deadline for when you want to be doing the stuff that you really want to be doing. I hope that made sense to someone, because that's the majority of what I'm getting. I don't feel the need to elaborate more on it. So you don't have to do it all tomorrow. You don't have to like make the full transition. It's a gradual transition, but a tight deadline. Like, don't give yourself forever to make this change, but give yourself enough time to gradually trickle away from the past and towards your future so that it feels more stable. Yeah. I mean, also, this is just like a message of like, start making money at the new thing before you stop doing the old thing. That's kind of what this is. Yeah, so you're not going to completely jump ship and leave yourself with no financial stability, but you are going to not drag things out further than it needs to be. So treat the new thing like you have to make money on it tomorrow, but keep the old thing until you know the new thing is making you enough money. That's the message from this card. Okay, Sunday, the 3rd of August, quieter astrology. Moon moves into Sagittarius, so a little bit of wanderlusty energy and our innermost emotions. But I want you to wander within the realm of your own possibilities, because the card is the 8 of Pentacles. The 8 of Pentacles is a really beautiful card coming off of the rest of this week's energy, because it's about becoming a master of your craft. So if you've been creating something all week, if you're doing that job pivot transition, if you are working on your home life, if you're restructuring things as we move into August and reorganizing things, you are going to become a master at whatever that is. And this is a practice makes perfect energy, because this person has been sitting at this table drawing the same design over and over again to make it the best that it can possibly be, to become the best at drawing that particular design, which in this case is pentacles, which represent our money and security. So this is definitely an energy of letting Sunday be about really fully committing to getting better at the thing that you want to do, and knowing that it's going to take time and repetition to really meet your ultimate goals, but also recognizing that along the way, that imperfection is still valuable. So don't let the commitment of time like slow you down or stall you. Let the process be part of the creation. I mean, this kind of feels like someone like wanting to become a great artist and like still being encouraged to share what they're creating, even when it's not perfect. Like, don't let perfection get in the way of creating, but also recognizing that it's going to be a constant process of showing up, and that they will continue to get better with that showing up. So whatever it is that you're trying to create in your life, be it artistic or otherwise, keep showing up for it. Commit to it fully, because that's the only way you're going to get to the point that you want to be, both in your skill level and in your success. That is the week of July 28th through August 3rd. So if you are new here, what happens next is we dive into a personal reading drawing. However, I do encourage anyone that feels called to stick around for the personal reading to stick around, because sometimes there will be parts of that reading or even just a sentence in that reading that you need to hear. So trust your intuition. If you're like, I kind of want to see what happens in this reading, stick around. But especially if you are a paid subscriber, or if you tipped your reader this week, you want to stick around because you want to know if you won. So I always like to, or the past couple of weeks, I've really been enjoying personally thanking the people that are involved on this wheel spin that I'm about to do. Not present on the wheel because they won the reading last week. Sonia, thank you for being a paid subscriber. Also, big thank you to all my other paid subscribers, because they're the bulk of this wheel this week. Holly, Amanda, Francis, Tracy, and Caitlin. I so appreciate your presence here, if anything, so that I have someone to put on this wheel and give a reading to every week. So again, we don't do back-to-back readings. So Sonia, you'll be on the wheel again next week, but thank you for being a subscriber. And for everyone else, let's take a spin and see who wins. Francis, welcome back to the wheel and welcome back for a reading. I feel like you might have gotten week before last, so you're on a winning streak as much as you can be here. And I am going to use the same deck. I always like to check my intuition. I'm going to use our Modern Witch deck that we did for the week ahead. So I'm going to give it a sip of tea. And I'm going to grab the deck and we are going to do a past, present, future reading. So I always leave it open-ended, whatever the cards, spirit, my intuition wants to tell me to tell you, that is what's going to come through. And right away, I'm getting a message that the work burden messages from this week's reading could be for you. So be very mindful of not carrying more than your load. And if you are trying to make a pivot, make the plans and progress for that as well. Okay, we got a past card falling out. Let's see if we got any more jumpers that want to come on out. A present card. And whoa, that's too many. All right, okay. We have one that flipped up and we're going to take that one. Excuse me when I pick it up. Table might shake. Okay, so interesting energy here. So we have a past card for Francis and anyone that resonates with this energy of the Seven of Pentacles. So this really works well with the energy that I was just saying, that like if you are making some sort of like financial, career, like money-based, burden-based, task-based pivot, this definitely involves being patient with those transitions. So up until this point, you've planted some seeds. You've been watching them grow. You've been nurturing them. I think also part of this is maybe that sort of like pivot energy of like you've been doing something for a long time and maybe you're being called to do something slightly different. And there is a part of you that's hesitant to make that pivot because you've put so much work nurturing whatever it is that you did before. So don't let the fact that you've sort of planted seeds and watched them grow hold you back from following your true path, your true dreams. If you're being pulled towards something new, trust that emotion and know that if you did it before, you can do it again. That's really the message that I'm getting from this. Like, I feel like you've put a lot of hard work into something, you've watched something grow and flourish, and you're a little hesitant to leave that behind because of all the work that you committed to it. But the reason you were like destined to put all the work into that was so that you know in the back of your mind, hey, I can do this again because I did it once before. So maybe it'll look slightly different than it did back then, but whatever it is that you're wanting to dive towards, it's just the same process. You're going to plant the seeds. You're going to be patient. You're going to watch them grow. You're going to show up on a daily basis and nourish whatever it is that you're growing, and it will do just as well as the last project that you were working on. Moving into the present, we have the Five of Cups reversed. So this is an energy of maybe looking at what could go wrong more than looking at what could go right. So in looking at whatever this transition is, I feel like you need to kind of pivot your perspective to the silver lining of things. And like, rather than thinking what could go wrong, think what could go right. Or what is that phrase? Like, what if I fall? What if you fly? Like something along those lines. Like, it's like, what if you succeeded beyond your expectations? And let that be the driving force forward rather than stressing about what could potentially go wrong, because worry is just a meditation on shit. So we just want to focus on the things that we actually want to happen rather than meditating on something that we're hoping doesn't happen, because wherever you put your focus, that's where the energy goes. So put your focus on the things that could go insanely right in this transition, and know that you're still in the back of your mind somewhere aware of the wrong, so you'll be prepared for it. Like, I feel like people that like to focus on what could go wrong think that they're being really prepared for whatever disaster could happen. And there's an element of that, but like, even if you just thought of it for a brief second or you experienced something like it in the past, you are prepared. You don't have to spend all of your emotional and mental space continuing to worry about what could go wrong. Think about what could go right. and what could go right beyond your wildest dreams. The future card is the Four of Cups reversed. So I always see the Four of Cups and the Five of Cups as very similar messages. This one is turned more inward. It's more that it's all in your head. So again, in the near future, we do have this energy of maybe looking at, this isn't so much looking at what's going wrong, but looking at things that you're not as satisfied with. Like this image is more like a person looking at these three cups that are filled with something that they don't want to drink, but they don't realize that the universe is handing them a cup that's exactly what they want to drink. So as we move into the future, I want to first remind you that this card came out reversed, which the way that I've been reading them today is very much that it's internal. It's in your mind that this perspective is happening. It's not actually what's happening in the outside world. In the outside world, I feel like whatever cups are in front of you could be perfectly fine. Like they're not that bad. But in your head, they're not what they want, what you want, which is fine because that's your intuition guiding you towards what's right for you. And so it feels like these are just like the most disgusting drinks you could ever put in front of you. And you're getting like, there's a tendency to get like caught up in that, the disappointment of that. But don't focus on what you don't want to drink. Focus on what you do want to drink because the universe is trying to hand it to you. But whatever it is that you focus on, that's where your attention goes. Law of attraction, like, and also a bunch of psychological studies that also tell the same thing. Like, if you are only noticing the things that you don't want that are being offered to you, you might miss an opportunity that's exactly what you do want. So keep your eye on the prize. Continue to refocus yourself on what could go right, what you want, what the best case scenario is. And that is going to help you to draw it into your life and notice it when it arrives. Because that's the other thing is like, if we think that worrying about what could go wrong prepares us for something going wrong so that we know what to do when it happens, the same is true for thinking about what could go right. You want to be equally prepared for what could go right. And if you've been worrying so much about what could go wrong, you could be presented with the absolute perfect opportunity, but because you haven't visualized that future for yourself, you could feel unprepared for it. So visualize your perfect future so that when it shows up, you know exactly how to act because you've already been acting that way in your head for so long. Underneath the deck, we have the Six of Cups, upright. So there is a sense of this being sort of a pivot towards fulfilling a childhood dream, something that you've been wanting and dreaming about for a very long time, something that really speaks to your inner child that you have always wanted for yourself, but you've just been talking yourself out of it with that like worry and constant thought process. So trust that it was always meant for you. It's why you've wanted it for so long. It's why the littlest version of you knew that this was the life that you were meant to live. And it's just about shifting your focus towards what you want and shifting it away from what you don't want, which is easier said than done, I know, but I believe in you. Thank you for joining for this reading, for Francis and whoever else stuck around. And if you want a personalized reading, first session's always 50% off using the code FIRSTTIME, 1STTIME, over at michelleshewalker.com. Other than that, have a beautiful end of July and an exciting start of August. And I will see you next week for more glass half full perspective.